The sky above the alien capital burned red, filled with smoke, fire, and the sound of dying engines. The great city of Vareth trembled under explosions. Shining towers cracked like glass, and alien soldiers ran through the streets, shouting orders in fear. The royal palace stood tall in the center, golden spires stabbing the sky. But even that great fortress was shaking as war came to its gates. Inside the throne room, the alien queen stood tall, wearing silver armor that shimmered with light. Her eyes glowed violet and her voice carried power. She had ruled 1,000 worlds. But now, for the first time, fear touched her heart. Her enemies were no longer at the borders, they were inside her own city. Her guards had fallen. Her generals betrayed her outside the palace. The enemy forces were closing in, and among the smoke and chaos, a single human soldier moved silently through the ruined streets. His name was Jack. He was not part of the Queen's army. He had crashed here days ago, his ship destroyed during a nearby battle. He could have fled. He could have hidden. But something inside him refused to leave innocent people behind. He watched the alien soldiers fight to protect their queen. He saw their fear, their desperation, and he understood. Even if they were not human, they were still people fighting for their home. So he picked up a fallen plasma rifle, checked its charge, and started running toward the palace inside. The queen stood before her massive throne, surrounded by guards. The floor shook as a blast tore open the outer wall. Flames and smoke poured in. A group of assassins in dark armor stormed through. Their leader, a tall alien general with red eyes, shouted, "The age of the queen is over." The queen raised her hand and unleashed a wave of energy that threw 2 assassins backward, but the others kept coming. They were faster, stronger, and her guards were already down. The queen fought with fury, her sword glowing blue as she cut through the air, but one of the assassins fired a plasma bolt straight at her chest. At that very moment, a shadow leaped through the broken window. The bolt hit metal instead of flesh, and the attacker fell backward. A human stood there covered in dust and burns, his uniform torn, his eyes cold. He raised his weapon and fired 1, 2, 3 shots. Every blast hit with perfect aim. The assassins fell one by one before they even realized who was shooting. The queen froze for a second, staring at the strange creature who had just saved her. She had seen humans before, weak, emotional, unpredictable, but this one looked different. There was no fear in his eyes, only focus. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling between authority and disbelief. Jack didn't answer right away. He reloaded the weapon calmly, his hand shaking slightly from exhaustion. "Just a soldier," he said finally. Passing through, before the queen could speak again, the general rose from the ground, blood dripping from his shoulder. He roared in rage and charged forward with a blade raised high. Jack moved without hesitation, blocking the attack with his arm guard and firing at point blank. The general's armor cracked, and he fell to the floor silent. Smoke filled the throne room. The firelight danced across the queen's face as she looked at the human standing among the dead. "You saved me," she said softly. As if testing the words, Jack looked around the ruined hall. "You'd have done the same," he said quietly, turning toward the shattered window. But before he could leave, she stopped him. "Wait," she commanded, her voice echoed through the hall. "You risked your life for me, you could have escaped, why stay?" Jack turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Because someone had to," he said. Then he walked away into the smoke. Disappearing before the guards rushed in, the queen stood still, staring at the place where he had been. Her people bowed before her, asking for orders, but her thoughts were far away. That human had moved like a ghost, fought like a warrior, and vanished like a dream. When dawn came, the battle was over. The queen's army had won, but she could not forget the face of the stranger who saved her life. In her heart, something strange began to stir, curiosity, and perhaps something deeper. Later that day, as she stood on her balcony overlooking the burned city, her chief advisor approached her. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "we found records of a human soldier among the crash reports. His name is Jack Hale, former Earth Defense Forces. He disappeared during the border wars." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Find him," she said softly. No one refuses the queen's gratitude, but she didn't know that when she found him, everything she believed in, power, control, and even her own heart, would be tested in ways she never imagined. And so began a story that would shake the galaxy. A story born in fire, sealed by courage, and written by a human who dared to make a wish the universe itself could not understand. The royal palace was quiet again, but the silence was uneasy. The scent of burnt metal and smoke still hung in the air. Guards moved like ghosts, cleaning the bodies and repairing the shattered walls. Yet inside the Queen's mind, one image refused to fade. The human, Jack Hale, the man who had walked through fire and saved her life without a word. For the first time in her reign, the Queen could not understand something. She had seen warriors fight for gold, fame, or fear, but that man had fought for nothing. He asked for nothing, he didn't even bow before leaving. And that mystery burned inside her like a hidden flame. When the morning council gathered, the Queen sat upon her throne, her silver crown dimmed with ash. "Bring the human to me," she ordered. Her voice was calm but firm. "He saved the throne. He will be rewarded," her advisor, a tall alien named Vorn, bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, we have searched the city. He vanished after the battle. No ship, no signal, no trace." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Find him," she said again, softer this time. No one refuses the Queen's debt. Hours passed, the court tried to return to normal. Nobles whispered, soldiers repaired weapons, and the people celebrated the victory outside. But rumors began to spread faster than the cleanup. The story of a lone human who fought like 10 warriors, who stood between death and their queen. It was a story the people could not stop talking about. Later that day, the Queen stood alone in her private chamber. She removed her crown and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The image of strength looked back at her, but she could still see the human's cold eyes in her mind. His face showed no pride, no fear, just quiet determination, she whispered to herself. "Who are you, Jack Hale?" As she spoke, a soft knock came at her door. It was Vorn again, holding a data pad. "Your Majesty, we found his records," he said carefully. "Human male, age 32, Earth Defense Forces. Last seen in the Outer Rim Wars, declared missing 3 years ago." The Queen took the pad and read the file. It was short. Humans didn't keep long records. Just battles, wounds, and service medals. But there was one line that made her stop. "Refused command promotion after saving civilian colony." She frowned. "Refused promotion? Why?" Vorn hesitated. "The file says..." He didn't want power. He said leadership wasn't his calling. He only wanted to protect. The Queen leaned back, thinking deeply. "A soldier who doesn't crave power," she murmured. "How rare." As night fell, she decided to visit the lower district herself, something no monarch had done in years. Disguised in a dark cloak, she moved through the broken streets. The air smelled of fire and oil. The people bowed without recognizing her. She finally found him near the wreckage of an alien shipyard. Jack was there, sitting beside a broken droid, fixing its circuits with steady hands. He didn't look up even when she approached. "You again?" she said, her tone mixed with pride and curiosity. Jack turned his head slightly. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Too dangerous." A small smile touched her lips. "Dangerous doesn't frighten me," she replied. "I owe you my life, human, and I always repay my debts." Jack stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "I didn't do it for a reward." The Queen stepped closer, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Then why did you do it?" she asked softly. Jack looked at her for a long time before answering. "Because it was right," he said. "No one else would have made it in time." The Queen studied him silently. Her people had always believed humans were reckless, emotional, unpredictable. Yet this one spoke with calm strength. He had no greed, no ambition, just a strange quiet honor that made even a queen hesitate. "You're a strange creature, Jack Hale," she said finally. "My people fear humans, but you saved our future. You could ask for anything. Gold, land, command of an army, even a planet." Jack shook his head. "I don't need any of that," he said. "I haven't decided what I want." The Queen blinked. "Haven't decided?" He nodded. "Maybe one day," he said, then turned back to his work. She stood there, surprised again by his simple words. No one in her empire ever spoke to her like that. Without fear, without desire. "Then when that day comes," she said softly. "The promise still stands, Jack Hale. The Queen of Vareth never breaks her word." Jack gave a small nod, not looking up. "I'll remember that," he said quietly. As she walked away, her heart felt heavier than before for some reason. She could not shake the feeling that this human, this simple, broken soldier would change everything, from the shadows of the ruined city, Vorn watched her leave, his expression dark and uneasy. He whispered to himself, "A queen showing interest in a human. This will not end well." But destiny had already started moving, and in the days that followed, both the queen and the human would find that debts of the heart are far harder to repay than debts of honor. Days passed after the queen's strange meeting with Jack Hale, yet the thought of him refused to leave her mind. She had met warriors from across galaxies, seen diplomats, scientists, and conquerors, but none had looked at her the way he did, with eyes that neither feared nor worshipped, but simply saw the palace slowly return to order. Repairs continued, and the celebration of victory filled the alien city with color again. But whispers grew louder among the nobles. Some said the human had bewitched the queen. Others said she had fallen under his strange earthborn charm. The court was full of envy, curiosity, and silent fear. Meanwhile, far from the palace, Jack worked quietly in an abandoned hangar at the city's edge. He didn't seek fame or reward. He fixed broken machines, repaired weapons for the poor, and gave food to wounded soldiers. None of the aliens understood his motives. They had never seen someone who fought without asking for payment. One evening, when the twin moons of Vareth hung low, a small shadow followed him. It was the queen's younger sister, Princess Alira, a curious and sharp-minded woman who didn't believe the stories about the heroic human. She wanted to see him herself. From the darkness, she watched as Jack sat before a damaged royal drone, its ancient circuits humming faintly. He whispered to himself as he worked, "You're not dead yet, come on, you old thing." He wasn't just fixing it, he was talking to it, like it was alive. His fingers moved with surprising skill, connecting wires, fusing metals, and adjusting alien energy cells that no human should even understand. Alira's eyes widened. "How does he know that technology?" she whispered. "Even our engineers can't repair those models." Jack finally stood and stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. The drone lit up, glowing bright blue, and slowly rose into the air, hovering perfectly stable. It turned its sensors toward him and beeped softly, as if greeting an old friend. "You're welcome," Jack said quietly. With a small smile, Alira couldn't stay hidden any longer. She stepped out from the shadows. "That's impossible," she said, her voice full of awe. Jack froze for a second, then looked over calmly. "You shouldn't sneak up on people like that," he said. Alira stepped closer, her long hair shimmering under the moonlight. "How do you know how to fix that drone?" she demanded. "That design is older than your entire species." Jack shrugged slightly. "Machines talk if you listen," he said simply. "They all follow logic, no matter the world." "That's not possible," she insisted. "You're human. You don't have access to our ancient core data. Not even royal engineers can." He looked at her and said quietly, "I learned from someone who did." Alira blinked, confused. "Who?" Jack looked away, his voice turning softer. "A prisoner of your kind. Long ago he was kind to me when I was just a soldier lost behind alien lines. He taught me things your empire forgot." Alira's eyes narrowed. "You mean you were captured by us?" He nodded once, years ago, but he wasn't cruel. He said knowledge should be shared, not buried. The princess felt a strange mix of guilt and wonder. Her people had always seen humans as violent and simple, yet this one spoke of mercy and learning. Before she could say more, a bright beam of royal guards' lights flashed through the ruins. "Princess Alira," one of them shouted, "we've been looking for you." The guards stopped when they saw Jack standing near her, their weapons immediately raised. "Step away from the princess, human." Alira lifted her hand. "No, lower your weapons," she ordered. "He's not a threat." But one guard, young and impulsive, fired a warning shot anyway. The plasma bolt struck a nearby crate, sending sparks across the floor. Jack didn't move. Instead, he reached down and pressed a button on his wrist device. The old drone beside him suddenly emitted a blinding shield of blue light, absorbing the next shot completely. The guards froze, staring in disbelief. "That technology, how?" one muttered. Jack stepped in front of Alira calmly. "You shouldn't be out here without better security," he said to her. "There are still traitors in your city." She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "You saved me." "Again," she whispered. The guards, now silent and confused, slowly lowered their weapons, recognizing the strange power he controlled. That night, word of the incident reached the queen. Vorn, her advisor, stood beside her throne, whispering urgently, "He repaired forbidden tech, your majesty. Ancient Varethian drones, and only our ancestors could do that." How can a human know such things? The queen said nothing for a long time. Her mind was storming with questions. Was he a spy, a lost genius, or something the universe hadn't seen before? Finally, she rose and said, "Bring him to me, but not as a prisoner." "As a guest?" Vorn frowned. "Your Majesty." "That's dangerous." She cut him off. "So is ignoring fate," she said coldly as she stared out into the night sky. Her heart trembled with a feeling she could not name. Curiosity mixed with fear, and something dangerously close to admiration. And far below, Jack sat quietly in his hangar. Watching the stars through the broken roof, he whispered to himself, "I didn't want to be found yet," but deep down, he knew the real war was about to begin, not on the battlefield, but in the heart of a queen who had never met a man like him. The night of the royal feast arrived, and the palace glowed brighter than the twin moons above the capital. The great hall was alive with color and music. Golden banners hung from the ceiling, and hundreds of nobles gathered to honor the victory that saved their empire. But beneath the laughter and applause, tension whispered through every shadow. For tonight the queen had summoned the human, the one who refused every reward. Jack Hale entered the palace quietly, dressed in simple black uniform, his posture calm, his eyes steady. He looked out of place among the jeweled nobles and shimmering silks, yet somehow he carried a quiet authority that drew eyes toward him. Conversations hushed as he passed, whispers followed. "That's the human, the one who saved her. He's dangerous." At the end of the hall, the queen sat upon her silver throne, her armor replaced by a flowing royal gown. The violet glow of her eyes softened when she saw him. She had not admitted it to herself, but she had waited for this moment since the day he vanished into the smoke. The trumpet sounded, and the herald announced, "Commander Jack Hale of Earth Defense, Savior of the Throne, Guest of Honor." Jack stopped at the foot of the stairs and bowed slightly, not as a subject, but as a soldier. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice calm. The queen rose from her throne, the hall falling into silence. "Rise, human," she said. "You saved my life and my empire. You stand not as a stranger, but as one honored by the crown." She stepped closer, her long cloak trailing behind her. "You refused riches, you refused power, and you said you would decide later what you truly wanted," she said. "Tonight before my people I ask you again, what is your wish?" The hall grew still. Every noble leaned forward, eager to hear what the human would demand. Some expected him to ask for gold. Others feared he would request military command. A few whispered that he might even demand a star system of his own. Jack looked up at her, his eyes calm and serious. He hesitated for a brief moment, as if weighing something invisible, then he spoke. His voice strong but quiet enough to make the entire hall lean closer. "My wish," he said, "is not land, not wealth, not command." The queen tilted her head slightly, her curiosity deepening. "Then what do you desire, human?" He looked straight into her glowing eyes, his expression steady. "I choose you," he said simply. The hall froze. Time itself seemed to stop. 1,000 eyes widened. A cup dropped and shattered on the marble floor. The queen blinked, her breath catching. "You... what?" she whispered. "I choose you," Jack repeated. "You asked me what I wanted most, and I realized it isn't power or reward. It's you." The words struck the hall like thunder. Nobles gasped. Some shouted, others laughed in disbelief. One general stood up angrily, slamming his fist on the table. "This is an insult," he barked. "A human dares to desire the Queen of Vareth? This is treason!" Guards raised their weapons and chaos began to ripple through the crowd. But the queen raised her hand, her voice sharp and commanding. "Silence!" The entire hall fell quiet. Even the music stopped. Her gaze locked onto Jack, a mixture of shock, confusion, and something deeper hiding behind her royal composure. "Do you understand what you are saying?" she asked slowly. "To claim me as your wish is to defy every law of my people." Jack nodded calmly. "I understand," he said, "but I also know what I saw in you. A leader carrying the weight of 1,000 worlds. Alone, I don't want your throne, I want the person behind it." For a moment, the queen said nothing, her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not with desire, but with truth. It wasn't flattery. It wasn't manipulation, it was real. Vorn, her advisor, stepped forward in anger. "Your Majesty, end this nonsense. He's manipulating you. He seeks to stain your honor." The queen turned sharply. "Enough, Vorn," she said, her voice like steel. She looked back at Jack. "Do you know what your words will cause?" she asked. "The nobles will revolt, the council will brand you a blasphemer, they will not allow this." Connection. Jack met her gaze without fear. "Then let them," he said simply. "You asked me for my wish, I gave you my answer. I won't take it back." The hall erupted again, voices shouting, guards stepping forward. The queen's hands trembled slightly, but she didn't move. Her mind swirled with emotions she could not name. Anger, confusion, and an ache that scared her more than any battle. Finally, she whispered, "You are a fool. Human." Her voice breaking slightly. "You have no idea what you've just started." Jack gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe not," he said softly. "But neither did you when you made that promise." Before anyone could act, he turned and walked out of the hall, his boots echoing through the silence. The queen stood frozen, her people staring at her. Waiting for her to speak, Vorn shouted, "Guards! Arrest him!" But she raised her hand again, stopping them. "No," she said coldly. "Let him go." As Jack disappeared beyond the golden doors, the queen slowly sat back on her throne, her chest rising and falling with deep, uneven breaths. Her heart, once ruled only by duty and pride, now beat with something terrifying. Curiosity, fear, and an emotion she dared not name. And though the feast resumed, no one truly celebrated, for everyone in that hall knew the truth. A single human's wish had just shaken the entire galaxy. The next morning, the golden halls of Vareth no longer sang with celebration. They echoed with whispers, fear, and anger. The queen's shocking silence after the humans' bold declaration had torn through the empire like wildfire. Every noble, soldier, and servant was speaking about it. The human chose the queen. He wants her as his reward. Has she gone mad? The queen stood alone in her chamber, her reflection in the mirror cold and distant. Her violet eyes, once proud and unshaken, now trembled with confusion. The human's words still echoed in her mind. "I choose you." No one had ever dared to speak to her like that. Not even her closest generals. He hadn't demanded, he hadn't begged. He had simply said it and walked away. Her hand brushed the glass of the mirror, her voice a whisper. "Why can't I stop thinking about him?" Outside, her advisor Vorn paced angrily in the council room, surrounded by nobles dressed in silk and armor. "This cannot stand," he hissed. "A human claiming the queen as his prize. It's a disgrace to our kind." Another noble slammed her fist on the table. "The people are losing faith. Rumors spread faster than truth. We must act before this madness infects the throne." A third voice, lower and colder, said, "Then let us remove him quietly." The council fell silent for a moment. Vorn turned, his expression dark. "If she will not order it, we will," he said. "For the good of the empire." That night, the palace was darker than usual. The torches burned low, and the moonlight slipped like silver through the windows. Jack Hale sat alone in the guest quarters he'd been given. Though guest now felt like a dangerous word, he could feel the tension in the air. He knew the nobles wouldn't sit quietly after what he'd said. But he didn't regret his words, not even for a second. He looked out of the window at the distant stars, whispering to himself, "You never know what peace looks like until someone tells you you don't belong in it." His instincts, sharp from years of battle, sensed it before it happened. The faint shuffle of boots outside the door, the metallic click of weapons. He sighed quietly and reached for the plasma pistol he'd hidden beneath his coat. The door burst open and 6 armored guards rushed in, faces hidden behind dark visors. "By order of the council, you are under arrest," one shouted. Jack didn't answer. He dropped low, rolling to the side as the first plasma bolt tore through the wall. He fired back once, a precise shot that disarmed the nearest attacker. Sparks filled the room as energy blades lit up blue. Within seconds, the air was full of fire and motion. Jack moved like a storm, every strike controlled, every movement efficient. The guards were well trained, but not like him. He fought not with rage, but with clarity. 2 guards fell. One's armor cracked, the other pinned against the wall. Another tried to attack from behind, but Jack spun and slammed his elbow into the alien's neck, dropping him instantly. When it was over, the room was silent except for the sound of crackling wires. Jack lowered his weapon and looked at the last guard, who was crawling toward the door. "Go," Jack said quietly. "Tell whoever sent you that next time I won't be so gentle." The terrified guard stumbled out, leaving a trail of sparks behind him. Moments later, the door to the corridor opened again, but this time, It wasn't another assassin, it was the Queen, surrounded by 2 loyal soldiers. Her eyes widened when she saw the bodies on the floor. "What happened here?" she demanded. Jack turned toward her slowly. "You tell me," he said flatly. "Your people tried to kill me." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Not my people, the council." He looked into her glowing eyes. "You knew they'd come." Her jaw tightened. "I suspected they might," she admitted. "But I thought they'd at least wait until morning." Jack holstered his weapon and said quietly, "They won't stop now, you know that." She stared at him, torn between duty and something far more personal. "You've made enemies that no human should ever face. They will destroy you." Jack gave a small, tired smile. "Then let them try." The Queen took a step closer, her voice softer now. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked. "You could have left. You could have escaped this world, but you stay, even when death waits at every corner." Jack looked at her for a long time. "Because running is easy," he said, "but some things are worth standing for a brief second." Their eyes met, and in that silence something unspoken passed between them, something fragile yet powerful. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed from the outer palace. The floor trembled and alarms blared. The Queen's soldiers rushed to the windows. "Your Majesty, there's been a breach." Jack moved to her side, instinct taking over. "They're not stopping at me," he said. "They're coming for you." The Queen hesitated. "You mean the council?" Jack interrupted. "They're moving tonight if they can't kill me quietly. They'll overthrow you openly." The Queen clenched her fists, her royal mask slipping away, revealing fear. Real, human-like fear. "Then we fight," she said fiercely. Jack nodded once. "Then we fight." Outside, the palace lights flickered as rebel ships began descending through the crimson clouds, and the first shots of rebellion echoed through the night. The human and the Queen stood side by side, surrounded by fire and betrayal, and for the first time in the history of her empire, the Queen realized she trusted no one more than the man who dared to claim her heart as his wish. The night burned red above the capital of Vareth. Enemy ships filled the skies, their engines screaming as explosions tore through the palace walls. The rebellion had begun, led by those who once bowed before the throne. The Queen's own council had betrayed her, and now her kingdom trembled on the edge of ruin. Inside the collapsing palace, the Queen and Jack Hale moved through smoke and chaos. Side by side, the once golden corridors were now filled with flames. Dead guards and flickering holograms of broken orders. Every step echoed like thunder, every heartbeat a reminder that their world was falling apart. Jack's voice was calm despite the madness. "We can't stay here," he said, checking the charge of his plasma rifle. "They're closing in from both sides." The Queen's armor shimmered faintly in the firelight, her once perfect composure replaced by determination. "We hold the inner gate," she said firmly. "If the rebels take it, the whole city will fall." Jack glanced at her, his tone steady but sharp. "You'll die if you stay." Her violet eyes met his, unshaken. "Then I die as a queen," she said, not as a coward hiding behind her crown. For a second, he just stared at her. And in that second, he saw not an alien ruler, but a woman willing to burn for her people. He sighed, shaking his head. "Then I guess I'm dying too." They reached the grand hall leading to the inner gate, where loyal guards stood against an army of rebels. Plasma fire lit the air, painting the walls with flashes of blue and red. The Queen drew her blade, its glowing edge humming like thunder. "With me," she shouted, and her soldiers rallied. Jack ran beside her, covering her flanks with precise, deadly aim. He moved like a machine, as no wasted motion, no hesitation. Every time a rebel broke through the line, Jack was there, pulling them down before they could reach her. The Queen fought like lightning, her strikes beautiful and brutal. Each swing of her blade left a trail of burning light. But for every rebel that fell, 2 more took their place. Too many. One soldier cried, "They've breached the east wall." Jack turned, firing 3 quick shots, clearing a path. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup around the throne chamber." The Queen hesitated. "That's not a command you can give here." "Human," she said, breathless. Jack shot her a brief grin. "Then consider it a suggestion." She couldn't help the faintest smile even in the chaos, but it vanished when a plasma blast struck near her. Throwing her backward, the impact shattered her shield, and her crown rolled across the floor. Jack's heart dropped. He sprinted through the smoke, diving over fallen soldiers to reach her. "Stay with me," he shouted, pulling her to cover. I'm fine, she whispered, blood streaking her cheek. No, you're not, he said, pressing his hand against her wound. The palace shook violently as another explosion tore through the upper tower. Dust and flames rained from above. The rebels poured in through the broken gates, shouting victory cries. Vorn led them, his armor gleaming with stolen royal insignia. His voice roared over the noise. The queen has fallen. Surrender, and I may let you live. Jack stepped out from the smoke, his weapon raised. You talk too much, he said coldly. Vorn sneered. You're nothing but a filthy human. You don't belong in our world. Jack fired, one perfect shot that tore through Vorn's weapon arm. The traitor screamed in rage, lunging forward with his blade. The two men clashed in a brutal storm of metal and fire. Sparks flew, smoke curled, and the queen watched through blurred vision as Jack fought for her life. He moved with deadly precision, blocking, countering, striking. But Vorn was faster than he expected, and stronger. A blade cut across Jack's chest, and he stumbled, blood dark against his uniform. The queen's voice broke the chaos. No! She screamed, forcing herself to stand. Her energy blade ignited again, blazing with fury. She charged forward, her movements raw and desperate. Her strike cut through Vorn's armor with a flash of blinding light. The rebel general collapsed, his weapon clattering to the floor. The hall went silent. The remaining rebels froze, watching in disbelief as their leader fell before the woman they thought was dead. The queen stood tall, her chest rising and falling, her crown gone, her face streaked with blood and ash. Your rebellion ends now, she said coldly. Lay down your arms. Slowly the soldiers obeyed, their weapons clattering to the marble floor. Jack dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. His wounds glowed faintly with blue plasma burns. The queen rushed to him, her hands trembling as she held his face. Jack, stay with me, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Told you I wasn't going anywhere, her voice cracked. You could have escaped, she said softly. You could have left me. Jack shook his head weakly. I made a choice too, he murmured. I didn't want a crown, I wanted you to live. The queen felt her throat tighten. She realized then what his wish truly meant. It wasn't a demand of desire. It was devotion, pure and simple. He hadn't chosen her for power. He'd chosen her because he saw the woman behind the armor, the soul behind the crown. As dawn's light began to break through the smoke-filled sky, the queen lifted her head, her voice calm but firm. Get the medics now, she ordered. Her guards rushed to obey, but as they carried Jack away, her gaze followed him. And for the first time in her life, the queen's heart hurt in a way no weapon could match that night. When the fires were finally put out and the rebellion crushed, she stood on the palace balcony alone, watching the stars where the human had once gazed. Her voice was barely a whisper. You saved a queen, but you captured a heart. And as the winds of dawn swept across the ruined city, she made a silent vow. If Jack Hale lived, she would no longer be just a ruler of worlds. She would be the woman who chose him, even if it defied the stars themselves. Morning came slowly over the shattered capital of Vareth. The rising light touched the ruined towers, glinting off metal and ash. The fires of rebellion had burned out, but the scars of war remained. Broken ships lay scattered across the royal gardens, and smoke drifted like ghosts through the pale dawn. Inside the royal palace, silence ruled once again. The sound of footsteps echoed through the long corridor that led to the queen's private medical chamber. Behind those doors, the man who had saved her life twice now lay between life and death. Jack Hale's body was still, covered in faint blue healing light. Machines hummed softly beside him, alien technology working to repair what human medicine never could. He had lost too much blood, too much strength. But his heartbeat, steady, defiant, refused to stop. The queen stood at his bedside, her armor replaced with simple white robes. Her crown was gone, her hair loose. She looked nothing like a ruler, just a woman staring at someone who had changed her world. Her hand brushed against his, cold and calloused. You shouldn't have done it, she whispered. You foolish, brave man. Outside the chamber, her advisor Vorn's former seat on the council sat empty. The rebellion leaders were dead or imprisoned. The empire was shaken but alive. And all of it, every heartbeat of peace, had been bought with the blood of a single human. The palace staff whispered that the queen had not left his side for 2 days. Not even to rest. She refused to let anyone else tend to him. The healers said he might not wake, that his injuries went deeper than the body. But she wouldn't listen on the third night. When the moons rose over the city again, Jack's fingers twitched. His eyelids moved, the Queen froze. Hardly breathing, then his voice, hoarse and quiet, broke the silence. "Still here?" Her heart jumped. "Yes," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I am." He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the soft blue glow. "Did we win?" he asked weakly. She gave a small laugh, the first in what felt like years. "You think I'd let you die for a losing cause?" She teased gently. "Yes, we won. The rebellion is over." He sighed in relief, trying to sit up, but pain cut through his chest. The Queen pressed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Don't move," she said, her tone firm but full of warmth. "You've done enough." "Warrior," Jack smiled faintly. "That's the first time you called me that." She hesitated, then smiled too. "You've earned it." There was a long silence between them, comfortable, quiet, almost human. The sound of machines faded behind them, and for a brief moment it was just the two of them. "You kept your promise," he said finally, his voice low. "You said you repay your debts." The Queen shook her head slowly. "This isn't debt," she said. "This is something else." He looked into her violet eyes, trying to read the emotion there. "Then what is it?" Her gaze didn't waver. "A choice," she said softly. "Mine." The next day, the Queen called for an imperial assembly. Every noble, soldier, and ambassador from across her empire gathered in the throne hall. The massive chamber gleamed again, repaired and restored. But everyone could feel that something had changed, not just in the city, but in their Queen. When she entered, the room fell silent. Her robes were white and gold, her crown polished, but her eyes held something no one had seen before. Gentleness. She stood before her people, her voice calm yet powerful. "The rebellion has ended," she said, "but victory alone means nothing if we remain the same." The crowd listened closely. Unsure where she was leading, she continued, "I made a promise, a vow of gratitude to the one who saved me in this empire, and today, I fulfill that promise before you all." The heavy doors opened, and Jack Hale walked slowly into the hall, his chest still bandaged, his step steady. His uniform was clean but simple, and he bowed respectfully as he approached the throne. The crowd murmured, shock, disbelief, even fear. "The human," someone whispered. "He survived." The Queen raised her hand for silence. "He asked for nothing, no gold, no title, no command," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "He asked only for me." Gasps filled the air, just as they had on the night of the feast, but this time her voice didn't waver. "And I choose him." The words struck like lightning. Nobles rose in protest, shouting, "Blasphemy! Impossible! He's not one of us!" The Queen's eyes flashed with authority. "Enough!" she commanded. The hall fell silent again. "For years, I ruled with fear and pride, but this human, this one soul, taught me courage is not power. It is sacrifice, it is heart." She turned to Jack and extended her hand. "From this day, Jack Hale is no longer a stranger to this world. He is my equal, my companion. My chosen." Jack stared at her, speechless. He hadn't expected this, not in front of an empire, not under 1,000 watching eyes. "Are you sure?" he whispered. The Queen smiled softly. "For once in my life," she said. "I am." He took her hand slowly, their fingers locking together. 1,000 whispers filled the hall, but none dared to speak louder than awe. Outside, the city bells rang for the first time since the war. The people poured into the streets not to protest, but to witness something the galaxy had never seen. A queen and a human standing side by side, and as the night fell again over Vareth, the stars seemed to burn brighter. For somewhere between two worlds, between crown and courage, between alien and human, love had found its voice. The Queen looked at him beneath the endless sky and whispered, "You asked for a wish, human. Now it's mine too." Jack smiled faintly. "What's that?" She leaned closer, her eyes soft. "To never let you go." And for the first time in history, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, watching a queen and a soldier rewrite what it meant to be alive, to fight and to love across the stars forever.